Coming to you from rugby's greatest fortress, New Zealand's national stadium, Eden Park, is the Aotearoa Rugby Pod. It's awesome to welcome to the Aotearoa Rugby Pod Karl Budge, the new Blues CEO. Now, if you don't know Karl because you're from around the world, what you need to know is that he used to run the WTA and the ATP tennis events that come to New Zealand. They were pretty small and he blew them up. He made them events that you had to go to in the summer. He brought down Maria Sharapova, Caroline Wozniacki. All of the big names in tennis were coming through to play in Auckland, and it became an event. He did an incredible job of that before leaving to sail GP with America's Cup great Russell Coates to be their commercial and events director, looking after the growth of that sport before coming home to join the Blues and throw his insights and his weight in behind Auckland's rugby team. So, we welcome to the show, Karl Budge. Karl, you've only been the Blues CEO for a month or so now, but you've had a few things to get through, like a close loss to the Brumbies. What was that like watching as the boss?
Yeah, I'm glad I'm bald already, Ross. Yeah, it certainly changed the way I watch rugby. That's for sure. Gutted to the boys. Yeah, there was enough in that game last night for us to come away with the points, and I think injuries have been pretty cruel to us to start the season, particularly in some key positions. And the boys fought really hard, and it would have been nice to come away from our Aussie trip with 2 wins still on it.
How does it feel? Being in this role, because we've run into each other at Corrie Lounge or at the tennis, and we've always had awesome sort of insightful chats around rugby. Like, you are a rugby guy. Yeah,
look, I'm a bit of a rugby tragic. I sort of consider myself a 12 out of 10 fan. I would have watched most of the Super Rugby games across the weekend for the last decade or so every weekend. So I was pretty passionate about it coming in. It's probably a little bit unique, to be fair, Jip, but it's the first time I've worked in a sport that I was actually passionate about.
Yeah.
I grew to be very passionate about tennis, and I'm probably still growing to be passionate about sailing, to be fair. So this is sort of the first time that it's a natural love for me. And so look, it's a little bit different. It probably gives me a little bit of the feelings like the ASB Classic did. I often refer to those 2 tournaments as my first kids. Who cared about them so deeply, and I suspect this is a little bit the same with the Blue.
I suppose that's the thing with your background. You were in sponsorship and marketing, and you made your way that way into being a CEO now. What were the little things that led along the way that made you think, okay, this is the kind of job I'd like to be in?
I've probably done things differently to most all the way through, to be fair, Ross. My schooling was very different to most. I finished school at 16 and went straight into the workforce. So I went to school to play rugby on the courts at lunchtime, but not so much worry about my grades. And so I've had a really different path, I guess, than most in general. But I think the thing that's always given me the confidence and I think helped accelerate my career is follow my passions. I'm someone that if I care about something, I won't stop thinking about it until we've got solutions. And I think being so passionate around what we do and the roles that I've taken, it's helped you accelerate pretty quickly. And this is one that I've had earmarked for quite some time.
Do you think that street smarts is going to serve you really well? Because I think rugby's in a point now where we're actually getting our community back. We've probably pushed a lot of people away from the game, but Super Rugby in particular is really, I think, drawing fans back in.
Yeah, look, I think the game itself is in a really great shape. I think, when you start looking at the volume of penalties, penalty kicks versus the Six Nations, I think we're averaging 2, with our averaging about 8. And so, the style of game that we're playing, I think, endears ourselves more to the fans as well. But I sort of look, I guess, coming from a sport like Sail GP that almost assumed it had no fan base, and that people knew very little about the sport when we started. I think there's a wonderful learning coming into rugby. I've used this example with the team a lot. At our first game, my wife and 2 girls came to the game. They know rugby, but not, they'd be casual fans. And I use the expression that when we kick into our 22, 3 of the 4 people in my family don't know that's exciting. So how do we, as a game, as an entertainment experience, present that so people do get excited? That they're paying attention in that moment, they're building the hype themselves. We've got to help encourage that, I think. And there's probably quite a lot of learnings coming from outside the rugby environment.
One of the things, I suppose, about what you've done, probably more with SailGP than necessarily the tennis, where it was kind of a standalone couple of weeks that you built through the entire year for. You're now focusing on maintaining that interest and maintaining that for 4 months. Is that a more difficult challenge?
Yeah, it is. I often describe the Astro Classic as your summer romance, and we can kind of act like that. That you just made it fun. We weren't looking to get into a committed relationship. We were just having some fun and celebrating the things that were great about the Kiwi summer. This is now week in, week out. How do we build? How do we stack momentum? I think there's a lot of learnings coming out of SailGP. When we're designing a calendar from scratch, in the early couple of years, we had quite a few gaps in our calendar. That meant it was quite hard to keep momentum. The moment we could get into some consistent week-on-week action, you started seeing upticks right across your social engagement, your broadcast audience, etc. And that obviously relates then to commercial revenues, etc. And so I think there's a lot there that we can lean on and trying to get some regular fixtures that we now know, okay, well, this is what our Friday night experience looks like, and that we get known for what that Friday night experience looks like. This is what our Sunday afternoon experience looks like and how we get known for that. Because I think trying to get some of that stuff that intrinsically without having to be told, I think that's where the Classic and SailGP probably benefited a lot. And I think there's something we can do there in the rugby space as well.
One of the things like rugby gets a bit of a hard time for is if you look at the American sports, it's bad to compare because international rugby is probably the NFL, do you know what I mean? But is how do we fill the downtime better? And I suppose you've got a good concept of that. With the standalone, I suppose, SailGP and the tennis, do you see an opportunity in the downtime of Super Rugby to keep fans engaged?
Yeah, Jip, it's almost like you've been in our offices the last couple of weeks. We've talked a lot about that. Scrums, how do we get to a moment they're actually looking forward to a reset? What can we do? What can we add to an experience that you're almost hoping for a reset? That has become such an iconic piece of our experience that you look forward to it rather than try and turn that negative into a positive. I do think we hide behind those excuses a little bit, to be fair, boys. So, we talk a lot around the stop-start nature of rugby. And look, don't get me wrong, there's moments where I feel that too. But if we cast our eye to those American sports, in the Super Bowl, what is it, 7 seconds of action for 2.5 minutes of planning? That doesn't seem to be a problem in our sport. Tennis, we have a shot clock on the court that tells you we're happy to waste 30 seconds every point, let alone when there's a double fault. And so that hasn't been a problem for their sports. The same with golf. There's lots of examples where the downtime is actually where the engagement can be. And I think we've got to flip that approach. Right, how do we use that as an opportunity to educate, to entertain? What would the gaming world do in those moments? I think there's lots of reference points that we can reframe that challenge and see it as an opportunity to bring back closer and more into the game.
Are you meaning within the live experience for people in the stadium, or are you talking more about the television experience?
I think both. SailGP revolutionised how we watch sailing with their graphics. They've made someone that still can't comprehend how a boat goes 3.5 times the speed of wind into the wind, how that works, and the way they've done wind overlay on the course so you can see actually where the wind is and start screaming at the TV, go right now. That they've made that really effortless and something that we probably don't understand as the casual fan watching that. But likewise in the stadium, what happens in that moment? We've got so many LEDs, we've got big screens, we're all investing in big speakers. There's ways that we can bring that to life. And Ross, you and I grew up playing a lot of cricket together. We get this. You think of the way that when a bowler ran in, we'd all start going, ooh, that little moment of build-up, that we all got excited. That happened 540 times in a day. And we didn't let that distract us. And so I think there's those little rituals, those little ways that we can bring them to life, both on television, but also in stadium as well.
Actually, to your point, we were just talking with Justin Harrison about the interactions between refs. And if you think about the troubles that Offa had last night at scrum time, it actually became part of the drama, didn't it? Offa trying to plead his case, the ref going back and saying no, and that kind of interaction, if encouraged, creates that build-up to the reset.
And I think from the fans as well. Like I was sitting there, I'm agreeing with the Offa, and I'm sure there's a Brumbies fan going, oh, just pipe down.
or even just the understanding off the switch lines from last week. Now that wasn't really referenced last night. Here he was completely on the other side of the scrum that we could have understood what was going on a little bit more. You've got someone like a Greg Feek, who's arguably one of the best, if not the best, scrum coach in the world, sitting in a coach's box there that could be explaining to us what's going on. I think all of that sort of stuff. What are the moments before the moment? What are they looking for when they go to the touch piece? What is that actually? What are they trying to look at? Where can that moment be won? So we can start understanding and looking for that. To me, I think those are those things that rugby. If we took an approach like SailGP that we assumed people don't know about us, how much more entertaining that product actually could be.
It's interesting you say that, and I have a classic case of making it about me, so bear with me for a second. But I think that's why I really got into commentary, is because I love how the NFL teach you, and NRL do it. Like, I like listening to Mick Innes, I like listening to Cooper Cronk. And so, there's an element there. You could do that in live, but the TV product is massive in that sense, and bringing people on that journey.
I think it's that all round. It's the commentary, it's the graphics, it's when we're going to experts for comments. All of those moments. I looked at that last night. To your point, Offa had a really tough night last night. Why can't we throw to someone in that moment that does know what they're talking about to help her next? There was plenty of people in that stadium last night, or plenty of people in the commentary atmosphere that we can bring in to have those conversations. And so, I think that, to me, that's when we talk about being fan focused. I think that's really where I start to look around and go, how do we make this an inviting place? How does my 7-year-old daughter, who doesn't understand the rules of rugby, how do we get her to go on an education and make it really simple for her to understand the game?
One of the things you did early on for this Blues Chiefs game was try to steal all of the Counties fans back from the Chiefs from the early days. I really enjoyed that because it was outside of the box. It's, now 30 years in, we all know that if you are from Manukau South, you are part of the Chiefs. But does it have to be that way? Because really, you're in Auckland City.
You're in the super city.
You're in Auckland City, and it's quicker to get to Eden Park. If the traffic's
it depends.
You and I both grew up there, and I'm not sure any of us relate to Waikato as being our home. Look, it was a bit of tongue-in-cheek, but I think it's true too. The reality for us is we have more counties players in our squad than the Chiefs do. That's not an opinion, and why wouldn't we be looking at that as a critical part of who can come and enjoy our games? And frankly, if they're backing the Chiefs, great. I look at my family as a perfect example where, up until several weeks ago, I was a Chiefs fan myself, but my family were all Blues fans. How can that be part of our experience? Why wouldn't we invite that into our stadium? The 58% of Aucklanders weren't born here. So how do we actually invite that next generation and go, cool, if you want to put on a Crusaders jersey or an Islanders jersey because you went to Dunners like everyone else, but your kids are now born and bred Aucklanders, come on in. I think we've got to let go of some of those things and just actually enjoy that. That is what makes this game special, that we can have those rivalries and try and have a bit of fun and be a bit more relaxed around how we do fandom.
So how'd you go about doing it? Because obviously you come into a sport and you don't want to upset the apple cart too much with, you've got to understand what's happening inside and the reasons why it's happening inside in order to, look at the things that you're thinking about. How do you approach something where you've come from a different place with fresh ideas, but make sure that you bring everyone along for the ride and don't be the new guy who's suddenly throwing everything out the window?
Yeah, it's hard, to be honest, Ross. That's probably the challenge I find most, is that there's certainly no shortage of ideas sitting here going, wow, this is what we could do. But got to be really respectful of some great people, some really passionate, committed people that have done a lot of hard work over many years too. And so, it's trying to go on that journey, raise that ambition, and look at what we could. To me, the big one is taking away excuses. We went through that journey at the ASP Classic. People used to always talk around half of Auckland leaves at this time of year. That's why we couldn't fill our grandstands. Now I look back 10 years on and they go, oh, you're so lucky that you're at this time of year. I'm pretty sure the dates haven't changed. It's just what we did. And so I look at that in a rugby context, yep, there's lots of challenges with Eden Park. But we also have the biggest stadium in the country. We've got more space, more scale than anyone else can. We've got an outer oval that no one else has. How can we look at that as a strength rather than a weakness? And go, right, what are we going to go do? How can we change ourselves? How can we show a different perception? Perception is reality, and we've got to go and show ourselves to be different and invite new fans in. And to me, there's lots of stuff that we can do in that space. I mentioned the 58% of Aucklanders not being born here. To me, that changes our language around rivalries and things like that. That might have been true a decade ago. Now, almost 60% of the people living in the city don't necessarily care about that rivalry. So how do we go and give them a different reason to belonging? How can we be an integral part of their new community? If they're recently arrived in Auckland, how can we be part of their new that anchors into this region, etc. So lots of stuff to do, but taking everyone on the journey there is probably my biggest challenge in this next 12 months.
Tell me we get a tailgate party.
I love what Moana Pacifica did around Bryce in the car park at North Harbour Stadium. I think that's it's exactly the stuff we should be looking at. So, look, there's a whole lot of stuff that we need to look into. I think that whole experience in general, from pre-game to post-game, all needs to have an evolution. But I'm also really encouraged. Like we have a new area called the corner, unique for rugby. The DJ plays the entirety of the game. We don't stop when the ball's in motion. It's just a party zone the whole way through. And we only had 75 tickets left on that for our opening game that we trialled it against the Chiefs. We're pre-sold now. I think we've only got about a third of tickets left already heading into the Crusaders game this weekend in that space. So already within the space of a few weeks, we're starting to get a bit of a ritual there. I think that's some stuff that there's some reason to be optimistic. We've just got to keep enhancing it, and I think you'll really see that a little bit over the course of this year, and then certainly another level when we get into next year.
You've had the Chiefs and the Crusaders as your first two home games, so you've walked into some pretty cool rivalries first up.
Yep, I would have liked to have eased into that Chiefs game, if I'm honest, but look, it all has been great. I mean, the competition's just incredible in general at the moment, isn't it? The Brumbies goes and puts 50 points on the defending champions who lost the week before to the last place team last year. We go over the ditch and we're within 90 seconds of beating the Brumbies, and so it's just such a close competition now. I don't think on any given day anyone can win, and I think that is the excitement we want. Probably not great for the stress levels or the airline, but it is that style that we want. That anyone, there really is jeopardy going into every match, and I think we're going to get the best product when we see that.
One thing we're interested in is the way that you go about your business. I suppose within the tennis, you were front and centre. You were almost the face of it. You were welcoming players on and off the court. You were doing all of those things. More of a Dana White approach, where the organiser is also very much front and centre as part of the thing. As a rugby CEO, you're part of quite a different environment to that. So how do you approach, I suppose, dealing with the players and being, a face of an outfit and those kind of things? Is it quite different to what you would have done with the tennis?
Yeah, it is. And that was probably circumstances that led to that role at tennis, Ross. So we weren't flush with high-profile players. The reality of most of the people playing in our tournaments were away for the other 51 weeks of the year. And so the only person you could get to go and speak and create noise, was the guy running it. And so it was really circumstances there. We invested a lot, obviously, in the player side, and you needed to have those personal relationships if we were going to get players to come down to Auckland. And so there was a lot that went into it because of the circumstances, as opposed to necessarily a personality or a dedicated strategy around it. So it was quite nice to step into the background and sell GP, and now this role will probably be a hybrid of the two. Because I do think we need to have a much stronger promoter mindset. And that we need to go out and be great promoters. You look at a Pete Delandes who does that so incredibly well. It doesn't matter how many scandals or issues they've got going on in their sport. It's always positive fan focus. Aren't we winning? And we probably need to adopt a little bit of that. On the rugby side, look, I'm learning my way there. I still feel a little bit of imposter syndrome, to be honest, going into that environment. My second 15 rugby experience probably isn't quite up to it as of what we've got around the traps. So
Tell us about it. Tell us about it.
I think I dropped more passes than I made tackles. So look, it's one of those things that you've got to. I've got to earn my right to have those conversations. But for me, I've been around high performance environments for a long time. You start to observe the behaviours that are important in high performance environments, and that's probably where I can add my value, and hopefully a little bit on the recruitment side too, given that was such a big part. But we've got a wonderful GM in Murray Williams, a really capable coaching group, and so I look to them to lead the on-field, and I'll take care of the culture side of things.
Can I just circle back to that promoter style? Because there is a reason now Aucklanders travel back for the tennis. And you talk about Pete Volandis. Like, one thing we don't do well in rugby is we do not cheerlead ourselves. We will bag ourselves. We almost eat ourselves from within, which is crazy. You must see that space, because it's a natural talent of yours, obviously. I didn't like tennis, but I wanted to go to the tennis. Do you know what I mean? I'm not just blowing smoke up your backside. That's where a lot of growth, you need to tell people it's great.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And the reality is it is. We had 20,000 people to our opening game at Eden Park. If that was at a rugby league event, and that's not to disrespect what the great work that the Warriors of Auckland FC are doing, they're doing fantastic. They've raised the bar. We've come up to that. But if that exact experience was picked up and put into their environment, it was seen as a success. And ours at the moment, it's still seen as we've got work to do. And that's frustrating, but that's why I talk around perception. We can bitch and moan about it, or we can go, you know what, we've got to change our perception and how we're perceiving ourselves to everyone else. And so, look, I will be that relentless positivity. I think we can for Eden Park again. I can't wait to do that. This city was always a rugby city. The whole reason Super Rugby exists is because there was a bloke in the Blues jersey in number 11 running around 30 years ago that captivated us all. I want to get back to those days and go back and have some fun. I think a superpower of Super Rugby is we're not World Rugby. I joked the other day that it's shorter to get to Eden Park than it is a TMO decision in international rugby. And I go, that's true. We're not stuffy. We're not that tight control. We're an almost fearful audience. This is where you get to come in as fun. And if we lean into that, then I think we'll start seeing those crowds swell.
Because the appetite's there. If you look at COVID, I remember when we came out of COVID, we played the Hurricanes. It was an afternoon game. They had the big Hercules over the top. And everyone, players, coaches, front office, fans, actually took a moment and go, man, we love this game. And it was just like this big celebration. But then it just dwindled away. It's like, how do we create and have that memory of when it was gone, we were all miserable. That's the reality. Well, I certainly was. But once it was back, everyone was back on the train.
Yeah, that's something I look to and go, I don't believe that people are losing interest with rugby. I get it gets talked about a lot of the time, but look how many column inches have been taken up over a coaching decision compared to any other sport. And that they're not putting those column inches in because people aren't reading them. And so it tells me how much passion there really is still here for rugby. I read a stat the other day that there's 600,000 passionate rugby fans living in Auckland that have spent money to go to a live entertainment experience in the last 12 months that haven't gone to a rugby game. Now that's the group we've got to go out and start trying to attract again. And that's got to be being a whole lot more than rugby. The journey we went on at tennis, we went from about 17,000 fans through the gates over the fortnight to 105,000. I don't think we got any more tennis fans. I think we were able to bring in people like yourself, Jipper, that just wanted to be part of an occasion, part of an experience. And we've got to get that back. We've got to start that coming to a Blues game says something about your personal brand. We've got to get back to those sort of levels. And if we do that, I think you'll see them start to swell.
Give me a table and some champagne on the sideline for the day. I'm all in, eh?
I'm going to the corner.
That's what we should be thinking. Should we be having a whole lot of big green eggs and Webbers sitting there, with some decent beer on wooden benches? Is that the audience that we've got? what the magic of the tennis was not doing anything outrageous. It was just doing the things you were giving up your time and money to do, and doing more of that at the tennis. And so there wasn't a lot of genius in behind it. We've just got to go and actually present ourselves in the same way and go, right, what would you not ordinarily be doing on a Friday night, on a Saturday night? We want to overextend you a little bit. There's times you have to challenge what you enjoy doing, and I think that's where some of the magic really happens. But ultimately, it's a pretty simplistic model. Let's do the things that you already told us you like giving up your time and money for, and do more of that.
Oh, the Blues are back, baby. We're back.
He's going to run through a wall soon. He is ready to go.
I'm putting the boots back on.
If we lose any more front rowers, you might have to.
I will now. I'm ready. I'm ready to rock and roll.
Now, not to talk shop, but you've walked in, your coach is going and your captain's leaving. What's that been like to deal with straight off the bat?
Yeah, we knew about the coach. So coming in, that wasn't a surprise. It had been something that had been in the works, I think, even before I started interviewing. So that's something we've known about for some time. Look, gutted around Dolphin. There's no two ways about it. He's an unbelievable Blues man. I watched that game last night and I found myself saying, how do we not keep this man in New Zealand? That he just has so much value to offer still to New Zealand, and it's a shame to see. But I guess you get offset around that. We've had the emergence of someone like a Torian Barnes that has got a lot of people talking this year. I go, that's the beauty too. It creates opportunities. And I went out to watch our A team play yesterday, our Toa team play yesterday. That's 3 from 3, and it just says the depth that is being built at the Blues. So I think there's some really young talent. I'm looking forward to the opportunity of seeing a Malachi Rampling get his crack in a Blues jersey. There's lots to get excited about. But no question, we've got to make sure we're retaining the best talents, and losing Dalton's certainly a gutting one for the club when he didn't want to be going anywhere else.
And what about a coaching timeline? How long will it take? What kind of process do you have to go through in order to find a head coach of, Vern Cotter's level?
Yeah, well, we're moving at speed there. Being really impressed by how that process has played out. As I say, it started long before I got there, and we're now probably coming to the pointy end of that. So, look, it's been a good process. We went out and identified some core targets, and thankfully they've shown their interest, which I think speaks again to the position of the club and what we're looking to build. I think Vern's done an unbelievable job of unlocking what we sort of call our performance DNA. Chipper, you'd know this better than anyone. There were some elements that people thought of the Blues, a soft underbelly, show ponies. There were these things that we'd leveled criticism at us for some time, and I think VC's done a wonderful job of removing those, and really making it clear what our culture of rugby is and how we want to play the game. I think that's going to lay a great foundation for whoever does come into that role to be able to use that base and take it to another level. And we're pretty confident we're going to get the man that we're after, and hopefully that's not too far away.
How important is that though? Because I obviously went through a few coaches at the Blues, and things just get ripped off the walls and started again. I agree with you. I think and it sort of was Leon brought it in. We created those sort of 5 behaviours that is the Blues way, and Vern took that on board. And is that part of the discussion with that with the coach coming in that is important?
Yeah, it really is. There's a style of play that we want to be in the Blues now. As an example, we know we're always going to over-index with the Polynesian influence, just like the sheer nature of fabric of Auckland and our wider region. And so, we know that breeds a style that we want to play, and really embracing that and leaning into it. Being able to have that continuity. So right from when we get a young player coming into our environment, but they're playing the Blues way, they're training to be the Blues way. So as they develop through that pathway, you get a lot more consistency and understanding. I look at things like the Black Hats are just wonderful examples of how they've been able to have continuity right throughout their broader squad. And I think that's something that breeds confidence. If you've got an inherent belief in what the person next year is doing and how they're going to do it, it certainly gives you an opportunity to take care of what you need to do and be confident in dancing over the line of your capability, because you've got that confidence in what everyone else is doing around you. And so, I think it's vitally important, Jipper, that we certainly want a coach that can come in and add to that. but someone that recognises the great work that has been done and wants to continue it, I think is vitally important. And the other point I'd say to that, you're right, the Blues have had a few coaches over the last decade or so, and I think that's one of the reasons we looked to make this change. We wanted to recruit a coach that could be here for the long term. We wanted a long-term coach. And that was a big part of us making the decision we made and why we decided to go out and run a process.
Well, we look forward to seeing who that turns out to be. Carl, thank you so much for your time, mate. We really appreciate it, and all the best with the Blues. Not too much. I mean,
Go the Blues.
go the Chiefs. But yes, good luck
You've
with
got
the Blues.
me. You've got me, mate. Rain, hail or shine. Blues all day.
We all start doing that, mate, then we'll be in a good place. There's a lot of upside, I think, at the Blues, and I can't wait to see those crowds swell. It'll make a hell of a difference.